Russell Potter here, Motivo Academy, and in this video we're going to talk about employee discipline and some of the wider reasons why people in your team might have low performance that necessitated you to have the poor performance conversation. And if you haven't seen the previous videos on managing the poor performance conversation, so the employee improvement process conversation, then I encourage you to go back and watch the first 3 videos in the series, which will help you step by step to get through that meeting where you might have to give a poor performance warning to one of your employees. But if you've watched those videos already, then this video is to give you a little bit more insight as to why there might be performance issues with that particular employee. Because I know that a lot of managers spend a huge amount of time trying to uncover the psychology, the hidden reasons why an employee might have low performance during this period where you're not really happy with them. They might have done a few things or annoyed you over a period of time with their lack of attention to detail, seemingly a bad attitude, and so on. So in this video, we're going to talk about some of the drivers behind that. The first thing I'm going to say to you is that there are many reasons, psychological reasons based in childhood, based in things that are going on outside, that lead to people's behavior. And it is not your job as a manager to be the psychologist and therapist for the people in your team. I observe with a lot of leaders that I coach, a lot of leaders that come to me for advice. They say, how can I solve this problem with this person? They're terrible, this, that, and the other. And my advice to them is not to be sucked into the drama and distraction of that person. You have a whole team that you need to pay attention to as well. And you don't want 90% of your attention to be focused on rectifying one poor person. It's unlikely that person is going to hold back the other people in your team in terms of performance, in terms of outcomes and results. But if you focus all of your attention on trying to solve that problem, it's going to be a big distraction for you. And that's not a healthy place to be. So your job is not to be the therapist for that particular employee. What I would say is that you need to let the processes of performance improvement take their course, run their course, and I'll give you some tips at the end of this video on exactly 3 steps that you must take to make sure that it never happens and it never gets to the poor performance improvement meeting. It's quite hard to say, isn't it? So what are some of the drivers? If you are interested, what I would encourage you to do here is look at behavior and not attitude. Behavior and not attitude. What's the reason for that? There is significant evidence from neuropsychology that our behaviors are instinctive, based on belief systems and training and whatever events from childhood, but they are instinctive. Whereas our attitudes and our decisions are actually, in neurological terms, post-justification. What that means is that we often act, and your employee who might have poor performance is often acting and behaving instinctively and later on saying, I'm not happy about this and I'm not happy about that. In fMRI scanners, when they put people into fMRI scanners and ask them to click when they decided to activate whatever the neuropsychologist was asking them to do, what they found with the fMRI scanner is that they hit the button, but the behavior, the decision to act, the behavior was actually decided milliseconds before. That means that when we decide to do something, we are looking back and post-justifying the autonomic behavior. Now, it's quite hard to get your head around, I know, but what it means for you is that your employee is acting out of a behavior that is hardwired into them. There is nothing they can do about that. Later on, we can start to correct it, as we looked at with the performance review meeting. But it's really important to understand that you need to observe the behaviors rather than trying to correct the attitude. because correcting the attitude is not going to fix the behavior. And that is what we know from neuroscience. So the solution to that I'll come to at the end of this video. But once again, observe the behavior, document the behavior, bring up the behavior. Don't try to fix the attitude side because it won't work. The attitude side will not override the instinctive behavior side. We're going to come, there is stuff you can do, trust me on this, we'll come to that at the end of the video. So the next thing that you need to be aware of with an employee with low performance, and I have a whole career of managing employees with low performance from my time in human resources, but also as a management consultant as well, when business owners and CEOs would bring me in to their company to fix a business unit, like a specific department, and they would always tell me that person or these people have a terrible attitude and they're the reason for the poor performance. But often they were wrong. And there are two things that you need to look out for when you see poor performance. Number one is have a look at the systems. The systems. Now, according to Deming, Alexander Deming, who is one of the pioneers of quality management and all of the iterations of quality management that have come later on from Six Sigma, TQM, and so on. He's the father or godfather of all of these methodologies. They're all based on his ideas. And what he said is, poor performance, 80% of the time, is down to the system and not the person. So you as a manager need to take a step back, have a look at the wider picture, and have a look at the systems that that person is operating in. Are other people operating those systems without performance issues? How is everybody else feeling about those systems? And by systems, what I mean is the processes that are being operated. So for example, if you're in marketing, you might have systems that are about doing market research, gaining consumer insights, and then product development, and so forth. So which of those systems or processes is not working very well that might be causing the behavior of the employee that's operating that process or system to become stressed, to feel out of control, all of the things that make poor performance. So have a look at the systems and processes and see, are they motivational? Are they working okay? And importantly, leading on from that, from my time as a management consultant, one of the keys to when you see low performance is actually the capacity of the person. Now, by capacity, what we mean is the amount of time and resources that they have to do their job. You sometimes find that people have to work very, very long hours, especially if they are at the end of a long chain of previous processes before they actually get their job. I used to work for Elle magazine. And in the publishing arena, the writers and the creative guys, they would be first in the schedule. So they would go out and they would do their interviews, they would write their articles, do their photo shoots and stuff like this. Now, further down the chain, then you had the people who did the copy setup on the magazine page itself. So these are graphic designers setting up the page. And then finally it would go down to the publishing department, who would put that into a format where it could be sent off to the printer. They would always get that stuff late. Always, without fail, get it late. So they would end up working very, very late indeed. And true in coding as well. I used to work for one of the biggest web development agencies of the world, .com bubble time. Those guys who are at the end of the process often have very little time up against the deadline to do their job, and it leads to low motivation, it leads to poor performance, it leads to attitude issues. So be aware of this, that it's usually the system or not the person that's to blame. So take a step back and just do your own due diligence. Find out whether there is pressures on capacity, the amount of time that person has to do their job, whether they have enough resources and support to do their job, and whether the systems itself are very, very stressful. Some systems and processes involve dealing with difficult customers who are, abusive sometimes. So that can cause a lot of stress. We shouldn't assume that it's just the person and their attitude is terrible, where actually it can very often be different things. The next thing you need to look at is what's going on outside of the working environment for that particular employee. Now, in my experience, when performance issues are suddenly happening just like that, usually that's a sign that something happened in the job. A complaining customer who upset the feelings maybe of the employee, but usually it's stuff outside. And that can be everything from a divorce, a child that's going through a difficult period growing up and causing some anxiety for the employee in particular. Or it could be a bereavement in the family, or it could be anything from domestic violence to things that are more serious. So be aware that a lot of things go on outside of work, and use your time with the one-to-one meetings and as you bring up performance issues to just inquire about the welfare of that particular employee. Sometimes managers can often ask other team members, is everything okay with Stuart at the moment? I sense that he's not so happy at the moment. Is everything okay? Is everything going on okay in his private life? To have awareness of these issues. Now, not for 1 second am I suggesting that you allow the standard for the team to drop below what it should be, because that's not the right thing to do. The thing to do in that case is to speak and work very closely and communicate with that employee, offer as much reassurance and support as possible, and make sure that the work is still done to the required standard, that they don't want to have problems at work as well as at home, just to make sure that they have enough support, to make sure that you support them to maintain the standards through that difficult period, but again, to make sure that that standard is never gone below what is expected of the team. You must maintain high standards at all times. That is absolute fundamental of great leadership. So there are two things that I want you to think about with the poor performance situation that you might have with your employee. Take a look at those things and see in your own team at the moment. Have a look at those things yourself. See, are there any issues on the system side, the process side, that might be causing poor performance right now? And what's going on outside of work with that particular employee? Find out as much as you can, be compassionate, be supportive, but maintain that high standard. So I hope that helps to get a little bit of understanding about what the other issues are that drive performance. But as I promised you at the beginning of this video, something that will help you to be much more successful as a manager, and something that will stop you from really losing respect and potentially losing your job as a manager as well. And that is to maintain the very highest standards at all times for all team members. It's very easy to try to manipulate an employee whose performance is low and try to get down to the psychology of that person. You're not their therapist and you are not a counselor. You need to be supportive, but your job is to maintain a very high standard for that person and for the team, period. It is okay to be understanding and compassionate, to, as I said earlier on, to work with the employee. Is everything okay? But you never let the standard drop for that person or for the team. That is an absolute fundamental. When you start to drop that standard, it becomes normalized. It's obviously easier for anyone to work at a lower standard. You must maintain that high standard and maintain that avoidance motivator, which is the fear of getting in trouble with you if the standard drops below a certain amount. This encourages the team performance to be very high, and then you have other team members who will help you to maintain that high standard, because when somebody else drops below that standard, they will receive a little bit of peer feedback that will keep that standard high. So you never ever let that standard drop below what it should be. The second thing that you need to do, if you had to do a poor performance conversation, you left it too late. Sorry to say this, but when poor performance happens, the tendency is for us to let it go and see if it resolves itself. But that's really a mistake for a leader. You need to bring it up, and you don't always have to bring it up in a very serious way. I'm not happy with this. You can bring it up in a supportive way. Wow, usually your standard is a little bit higher for this kind of thing, or usually you would do this. What's the reason that you didn't do that this time? You're bringing it up with the employee to let them know that you've noticed. And it's much better practice to bring things up when they happen rather than letting them fester and bringing them up all in one go at a poor performance disciplinary meeting like the ones we went through earlier in these series of videos on managing the poor performance conversation. Bring it up as it happens. You don't have to bring it up in a really accusing and serious way. You can bring it up in a more subtle way, in a softer way, but let them know that you have noticed. So if somebody turns up late for work, rather than just ignoring it, said, "Is everything okay this morning? I noticed you were not on time." And that is bringing it up in a soft way that lets them know that you noticed. It's when you ignore things that they become normalized, and then that can become a norm for the team. So once that happens and the standard drops and the norms become quite low in standards wise, your peers as a leader and your managers will notice as well, and they will believe that something is wrong. They're looking at you to make sure that you maintain those high standards. So there is a lot more to employee motivation. There is a lot more on the positive side, actually, on employee motivation. If you're really serious about achieving in your management career, if you really are looking to earn a much higher salary, to manage bigger teams, to become a director, have people to P&L responsibility, if you're looking to become an executive, my strong recommendation is to head over to the Motivo Academy and learn about all of the different motivational tactics that you can use, and there's a lot of them, and they really work. I cannot tell you how effective some of these things are. Things like job rotation, job enrichment, which are pretty old school, but really work. I mean, I've personally used them extensively over the years, just to really bring out that extra level of performance in team members that gets you noticed, gets you promoted. All of the coaching techniques that you need to get yourself promoted, because there is a guarantee you will never be promoted from your leadership job to the next level unless there is a successor who can take your job, because your manager and your board of directors is not going to look outside to replace you. They're going to want you in that job because it's lower risk and you know how to do the job. So unless there is somebody who can seamlessly move into your job from your team, they're not going to let you move up. So I can tell you this because I do executive search. I'm an executive search consultant as well as an executive coach, and I've been a leadership trainer and organization development expert for 25 years. I can tell you, you won't get promoted unless you know exactly how to coach your team, to take your job as a succession, and to learn all of the things you need to learn about leadership and management. So it's so important. Go to the description below. There is a coupon below where you can get our 9-hour leadership course that teaches you everything you need to know to get that promotion at a ridiculously low price. Just for subscribers to this channel, it's a ridiculously low price below. So if you got to this stage in the video, I know you're serious about your career. So go over to the Motivo Academy, grab the course, learn how to get the skills that you need to build up your credibility as a leader, and that will get you promoted. You won't have to worry about yourself financially in the years to come, and you'll feel a fantastic sense of accomplishment and achievement when you do finally achieve that. If you're an entrepreneur, I would say the same. I coached a lot of entrepreneurs and done a lot of management consulting for them. One of the things they really struggle with is people management. And they have a lot of great ideas, but actually organizing and managing people becomes a little bit more important, in all honesty, if you're an entrepreneur or you're thinking of starting a business, because you have to pay that payroll at the end of the month, and you end up looking, I can tell you from experience, you end up looking at the people that you're paying whilst you're not being paid, thinking, did they really pull their weight this month? And the answer might be no. Because you might not be managing them properly, you might not be leading them properly, you might be actually bringing out the worst in them. So my encouragement for anyone who wants to own a business or is an entrepreneur is also go and take the course. It's almost nothing, it's very, very cheap indeed. But learn so you can bring the best out in your people and they can make you a success. So once again, I hope that's helpful to you, and there'll be a series of videos I'll do on motivational aspects and the positive things you can do on managing poor performance and managing your team. But in the meantime, if you could like this video, it would mean a huge amount to me. That helps to support the channel. You can support the channel by picking up the course, and you can support your own career as well. And thank you very much for watching this video.